And for what you say, I will get to better.
All right. How's it going, guys?
I love it. I love it, man. I love it so much.
It is
We're
going
back again for another show. So, hey, Bob, Stacy. So tonight we are going to talk about how does one become a ghost hunter, paranormal investigator, or a paranormal researcher? It'll be interesting, I think. We'll talk about, what do? Do you take classes? Do you go to school? Do you get an online certificate after about 2 hours of drinking and studying? Even if you did take something like even a legitimate class, what would you take? What type of courses would you take? Who would you talk to? Who would you learn from? So it's a whole bunch of different areas we'll touch upon tonight. And I will stop there, and I'm going to let Kenny do his opening statement. And then I'll kind of lead us after Tim, and then I'll lead us into our first topic.
Okay.
Kenny, what's up?
Oh, same old shit. Got a little different background today. I am broadcasting. This is an exclusive for 3TS because I'm broadcasting from the Mystery Museum. So I've talked about it and, had a big place and then had to downsize to a little place, which is this behind me. So all this haunted stuff behind me. Ooh. Anyway, so
something's bad's going to happen for sure.
Yeah. I'm waiting for the Ninja Turtle or the ghost over here to, start moving. So let me know if it does. So I guess the opening statements with this is, how do you become a ghost hunter? Or a paranormal investigator? And these are terms that I'm not used to being on this side of it. I was a long time ago. I was a ghost hunter, and even now, I don't like calling myself a paranormal investigator. I just like to investigate things, and that's the way I go about it. Sometimes I add the word skeptic to it because it's just, shock value, I guess. I don't know. But how would you do this? There's a lot of things you can do, and we'll certainly get into it. There's books, and there are lectures and stuff. Schooling, I'm not so sure about. And it depends on what we're talking about, I think, and how we take those terms. Because if you're taking it like, how do you become a ghost hunter? Well, you just do whatever the hell you want. That's basically what you do, because that seems to be the standard. There's no training for it, but there is training out there that you can take. But we might take a closer look at that later, because I have a few diplomas up on my wall here that I could show you, where it really doesn't matter. It's not even worth the paper I printed it on. And yes, I printed the certificates. So what does that tell you? I think what we're going to go on here, what we're going to get into more is like what we would look for. At least that's my approach. What I would look for, like classes or books, lectures, workshops, what have you. Right. What I would look for to help improve my skills and improve my investigative skills or expand my knowledge base. So with that, I'm gonna throw it up to Tim.
Well, like Kenny, I am in a new location, but mine is not haunted, unless it's just by the haunted tears of my soul, because this is work. So I had to come back to work. Yeah, I had to come back to work. The major computer that we use usually is currently being occupied by my wife, and that she is finishing a project that is due midnight tonight. So she needed all the resources that she could get, and that she should get. So I offered just to come to my office instead of making her quit. or asking her to quit for an hour or so. So I'm here. Pretty cool. It's a lot nicer when no one else is here. So yeah, that's why I'm at a different location. The computer's not near as nice. I had these old headphones that I used to use on another paranormal show. That's how old they are. And yeah, it's pretty nice so far. So for me, ghost hunting, if you want to be a ghost hunter, to me, it meant, I kind of thought of it almost, I guess, somewhat to what Kenny was talking about was, what do you want to do? It's up to you what you want to do. I think I hear so many people say, yeah, we want to know the truth. And some people say, well, we just want to help people. And we want to bring ease and comfort to people in tumultuous, demon-infested houses. And, some people just want to have a good time. And I think each one of those at least is a start of something where they want to go with it. And it would just depend on the individual. For me, I think when I started, I really, honestly, looking back, I always thought, I had this idea that I wanted to know the truth, but I was always not looking for the truth, but rather at first started trying to validate what I already believed was the truth. So that took me a few years to get out of that loop. And I got some notes on that too. So when we get into it, I'll might touch back on that.
All right. Well, I think you touched upon this, both of you, a little bit. It kind of depends on what you want to do. What's your goal? Why are you getting into it? How do you want to approach it? So, are you going into it for fun, tourism? Are you going to go to public places and just kind of wander around, or go to ghost hunts, public ghost hunts? Are you there to investigate and document things? Are you there to maybe look into an experience, solve a mystery, try to explain an experience, investigate a claim? I mean, there's a whole list of things you can go through. Or are you going to go there to collect data? Are you trying to, conduct research? Are you trying to figure out what's really going on? Are you trying to come to some conclusion in your mind of what this phenomena is and what might be going on? I don't know. I guess I see some people go into it. They want to be on TV, so that's why they go into it. They want a radio show. They want to teach classes. They want to be known as a subject matter expert in these areas.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Fancy words.
And then some people, they just want to go into private homes and they think they're going to help people, homes and businesses, and kind of help people. So I think it really depends on what you want to do. And to me, I do somewhat differentiate a ghost hunter from a paranormal investigator to a paranormal researcher. To me, there's differences. Not everybody would agree with that, but I think a ghost hunter is kind of the hobbyist, goes out and just in the word itself, you're hunting ghosts. So what are you hunting them with? And you must assume they already exist because you're hunting them. Paranormal investigator, maybe they take it a little more seriously. The PKE meter. Yes, you got to have one of those in a proton pack and a trap.
I have a trap.
But paranormal investigators, I don't know, maybe they do a little more investigation, at least in this part of the world, part of the U.S. I've seen people that call themselves paranormal investigators kind of take it up a little bit, step it up a notch, do a little bit more. And then paranormal researchers, which you're trying to kind of set yourself up as a researcher. And then it's more hopefully science-based and data collection, and you sound more like you're talking about. But I think we've talked about this on other shows, that people tend to look for titles that make them seem a little more experts in that area.
Paranormalist.
Paranormalist, whatever. We still are trying to figure out what that really is. So I think it just kind of, depending on what you want to do and what category you might fit in, it's going to kind of determine, I think, what you need to know and maybe the type of information you need to consume in any type of training. And I'm not saying training like going to a conference or a ghost hunting conference and they have somebody give a class on dowsing or spirit board communication or the spirit radio. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Is it kind of, do you think people should figure out how they want to approach the field and what they want to do?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Tim.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, I think they need to be honest with themselves. It doesn't bother me if someone just wants to go have fun, as long as they're not offering, as long as they're not messing around with families. I guess, to say, to put it pretty bluntly, if they just want to go to pay to play places, I guess prisons or haunted bars or just wherever, if that's what they want to do, then go have fun. That doesn't bother me. Some places hold fundraisers by letting people come in and stay the night and do whatever they do. That's great. That's okay. But I think when you start, the group I was talking about that wants to help people, I think that could tend to be a more dangerous situation. So if your goal is to help people, then I think that you really should be prepared to do a lot of studying, and to be true to yourself and understand if you have the capabilities to do what you're saying you're going to do. And if you don't, then don't go outside of your wheelhouse. Don't overstep your boundaries, and refer it to somebody else that can.
I agree. Basically, stay in your lane. You need. I agree with both of you. I mean, you really need to understand what you want to do. Are you doing this for a hobby? Is it fun and games that you go out to? Yeah, fine. Have fun. Have your weekend out. With your friends and get scared and all that shit. And I agree mostly. I think with the titles like Ghost Hunter. Yeah, that's a Ghost Hunter and Paranormal Investigator and Paranormal Researcher. They're all self-appointed titles. We give them to ourselves. That's what it is. I think it comes down to, do you live up to it or not? If you're going out there, and Dave, you got into this, like, are you going out to collect data, to actually solve a mystery, or are you doing the same shit over and over again that you see on TV shows, and it's just one big circle that you go around? You go out, you take some pictures, you get spooky stuff on film or video, you get weird noises that you can't explain, therefore you call it ghost, and you just do that routine over and over again. To me, you're nothing but just a thrill seeker, and you're not progressing, you're not solving mysteries, you're not collecting valid data to come to a good conclusion. Based on that data, you're not doing anything. And when it comes to helping people, that's definitely a sore spot with me too. It's a very sensitive spot with me. That's funny. But it's because most of the time when I hear this and they're like, "Oh, we like to help people," my first question is, are you really helping someone when you go into a private home and you tell them it's haunted and then you leave? Are you helping them? No, you're not. That's the answer. Spoiler alert, boom, you're not. Hands down, you're making it worse. Are you equipped to help these people? Do you have the background necessary in order to counsel these people on these weird things that are going on, and understanding their feelings, and either helping them yourself or getting them the help that they need, which is professional help?
Right.
Or are you just saying, hey, I'm a paranormal investigator. I gave that title to myself. I have the official photographer's vest that's black, because that's the only color we wear, and it's bulging with gadgets that beep and light up and all kinds of shit. And I have no idea how it works, but I'm going to help you. No, you're not. That's bullshit. Now I'm getting all fired up. So yeah,
it's the negative energy surrounding you from all the haunted objects.
Here we go.
Oh, energy! Damn you! Tim's drinking coffee. He's going to say energy like 800 times tonight.
I am. I'm driving back home, so.
All right.
So I guess to pull it back, yes, it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a cheap thrill, this is probably not the show for you. Because at least not from my perspective, and I'm pretty sure it's not from these guys' perspective either.
Right.
So if you're looking to actually like collect data or solve mysteries, then we'll probably have some advice for you. So there you go.
Okay.
Dave.
All right, I'm going to go to our first question. Who has read Harry Price? And your opinion. I'll just start off because mine's going to be short and sweet. I have read him, and I really don't have much use for it.
Okay. I've read a little bit. I have some of his books, mostly for reference. I don't consider him a good investigator. I think he missed a lot. I think he assumed a lot, and I don't take him seriously or his work. So there you go, Tim.
Tim?
Nope, I have not. I think my first impression was exactly where you guys were going. So I don't read or follow him. Yeah,
right.
I like your idea of the reference. So maybe I should, but it's kind of like another. It's kind of like another ITC person that talks to recently deceased famous people for attention. I just don't. I just once you kind of get it, once you get the taste for it, I don't want to go back. So
no. And I think with that, when I talk about reference, I mean I've shown like my library before, and I've not read all those books. Not a chance, because there's just too many. I usually buy a book because there is some reference to it, like a passage or a chapter, and I need to see that, because sometimes different versions of books, or you just don't get the whole thing, and I buy the book so I can get that reference, and I keep it on the shelf because you don't know when you're going to go back to it. So
right.
Which I think that was the excellent idea, that when you said that, I was like, well, shit. I mean, it makes good sense. Maybe I should do it. So.
All right, Ben Radford. Curious to know what specific training would be best suited to the ghost hunting effort. I don't disagree, just wondering what specific skills people think are important. And I think Kenny almost touched on this already, saying that if you're coming to this show, and the three of us, and you're asking us what to do to go ghost hunting, like Kenny said, you're probably not going to get too much out of us. But if you're going to come and try to figure out how to solve a mystery, or how to collect data, how to analyze data, how to set up a study, that's probably where we're going to have a little more information, and provide some other areas to go and figure out where you can learn that type of information. But I mean, really, if to specifically answer this, I would say no. Have some common sense to be a ghost hunter. Don't trespass. Do your public places. Go and do the public ghost hunts. I would suggest that you read the manual that comes with your equipment, both how it works, what it does, what its limitations are, and then ask other people that know something about it to help you out. You probably want to be competent when you go out, and it'll just be more fun for you if you know what you're doing with your equipment when you're out there. But as far as specific training, that's why one of the reasons I think I differentiate ghost hunters from paranormal investigators or researchers, because I think, to me, a ghost hunter is like, hey, I saw this on TV. It looks like something fun to do. It's kind of a hobbyist tourist thing. Let's go out and have some experiences. So to me, I would kind of just lean on know how whatever equipment you're going to bring works, and probably know enough not to trespass and cause problems, and know where you should and shouldn't go, and what you should and shouldn't tell people. Don't try to come off as an expert in any way. That's just a couple initial thoughts. So we'll go with Tim's response.
Well, interestingly enough, I had a list of ideas, at least just kind of jotted down for that. It kind of fits into that question. And I tend to have this idea, at least when people ask me, what can they study in school? Like if they want to go to college to study something for paranormal investigation, I typically tell them, get a job or get a degree or study something that's I cannot think of the word, but cross-cultural and cross-pollination are the two words that are coming to my mind. But it's applicable for your daily life so that you can get a job, but it's also applicable that you can have something that you might be able to apply to a mystery if somebody's saying that they have issues in a home that they can't explain. So that way you're not necessarily going somewhere and getting a degree in a paranormal field, which I don't even think you can, that's accredited. But, you know, something, home inspection, construction, HVAC, electronics, photography, engineering, my gosh. You know, these are just ideas that I think that at some point, especially home inspection, but, you know, construction, if you understand the way buildings and homes and structures and materials of the structure function over the course of years, and even in between heat changes and temperature changes, I think that you are like way ahead of the curve, but beyond light years beyond someone that just has layperson information as to what kind of noises could come from a house or a structure, just because you have that very specific knowledge. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of maybe not a very snazzy answer, but it's one of the things I like to tell people when they ask me what could they study.
Okay.
Just building upon that, yeah, I agree with the specific training. You don't have to do like academic training. You don't have to go to a college to get specific training. You can do workshops, or go to lectures, or even I don't know if you guys get it in your area, but like community college kind of courses where you get the booklet and you can sign up for a course. It's usually done by somebody that knows what they're doing. Usually, I have to stress that because I've come across some that are done
seen
by
a lot where that's not, and there's a couple of them around here.
Yeah. So check into the person conducting the class and make sure that the instructor is actually someone that's qualified to teach that course. But some of them are like photography, video editing. I mean, that's important too. And photography is a wide range too. It's
I have it.
taking pictures or editing pictures, and even old school stuff. I mean, if there's classes available for film developing still, you know, or glass plate, there's a lot. I mean, I've gotten into a lot of older photographs that predate digital stuff. Like we're talking not only film but plate photography, and it's important to understand how the process was. But you can also get into like psychology type classes or workshops where it's like, I mean, whenever the local like skeptics or humanists or critical thinking groups, like we have a Philadelphia Critical Thinking Association here, and they have speakers sometimes where it's like the topic is, why do we believe what we believe? And it's by a psychologist, like an actual psychologist. And the book that they have is available. You know, you can always buy it, but I usually buy the book and read it and figure like, oh, this is a good topic. You know, I want to go and talk to the guy and listen to what he has to say. And this puts a lot of perspective into how people think and why they believe things and how to approach it. And it broadens your knowledge base. So you have more of understanding of what's going on in front of you. When I started getting into photography, like that changed so much for me when my transition from ghost hunter to more of a skeptical guy. Photography was it. Like as soon as I started understanding how light interacted with the components in a camera, I was like, holy shit, I was so wrong these so many years. Like I had no idea what I was doing. So it opens your eyes. So I would suggest that kind of stuff. And then even like I've taken classes on hot and cold reading, the psychic techniques, you know, from people that were in the business, that did it for a living, that were part of the Psychic Friends Network. Mark Edward was one of the guys that taught me a lot of stuff about how to do that. And it's just amazing what you can learn. And then once you learn it, the stuff that you pick up when you go out into the field.
That's because he's sober, Donna.
Yeah, he's sober.
It's actually so comfortable. Like, this is such a comfortable chair, and
I'm just gonna fall asleep during the break.
No, I agree. I would add on there that if you're going to take some classes, you can take like a introduction to science class where they at least explain what the basics are of science and scientific method and how to apply it. I always recommend some sort of math or statistics class, because if you really want to get serious, you want to make sense of anything, you got to understand how to analyze some of this. So if you're going to get into the research part of it, there's also reputable online parapsychology classes. You can take an online class from Dr. Carolyn Watt, University of Edinburgh. They do the annual ParaMOOC, which is the Parapsychology Massive Online course. And while you might not think that has anything to do with ghost hunting or paranormal investigation, it actually does, because a lot of those original societies of psychical research, they were formed and brought up and came to be because of reports of ghosts and hauntings. And of course, they got into the mediums and psychics, but their roots are kind of in that area, and they still do some field research and lab research. It's more aimed now at why people believe certain things, how just their beliefs impact their interpretation or perception of events. But they also look at environmental factors that could be causes of ambiguous stimulation that cause you to think there's something paranormal going on. And, they do still pursue the potential and possibility of life after death, or some part of your consciousness surviving bodily death. So you could do a couple of those. I'd also throw in there, you could take like a private investigator class. That would probably be fairly helpful as far as, anything from how to investigate overall to how to access records and other things you might need to check on the history or the background of a location, an individual, or let's say somebody said there was a murder in that potential area and that's what's leading to your ghosty floating around. That would give you some practical skills and point you on where to dig into things.
And to add on to that, I've seen classes about like ancestry.com and like doing background checks, and that would be helpful too, to understand like how to navigate through historical documents. Because
journalism class.
Journalism, yeah. Mm-hmm. Big deal, yeah.
I have to say, I like statistics so much, I took it twice in college. It wasn't by choice, though.
We always ask Tim about statistics when we need to.
That's why I'm a psychologist.
We ask him twice, though, so we make sure we get a second opinion.
Yeah, there you go.
So one of the other things, I wrote down a bunch of points on training. When people say training, a lot of times they think, oh, you go to a class, or you like policemen go for training, or firemen go for training, or a doctor goes for training, a psychologist goes for training. But, it's not just going somewhere and doing something. There's many things you can do on your own to train yourself and get education and information. And it's not just paranormal. You're not just seeking out paranormal stuff. We've all made points already of other things you should look into. I would also throw in there, read about the field, read about what's already been done, be familiar with what's happening. Both, it's probably good to know what the amateur groups are doing and the paranormal investigators. You want to have a feel for what they're doing and telling people, but you also want to know what psychologists, skeptics, and serious academic researchers are doing as well, because that'll give you a broad base to understand what you're really studying and getting into. Try to figure out where to go for good information. And I'm sure we can all give you good ideas, but one of the keys I always thought is it's good to tell people to go find good information, but where do they go to find that? How do you determine if it's good information or not?
That's a good question. And I think that's, for me, it's been something that has been acquired over years of trial and error. Because it's difficult to just spew out a few things like, oh, just go here, it's good. Because it's not always the case. Like some of the things that I do is background checks. I do background checks for people. I mean, that's just a basic thing. You want to know who you're dealing with. When it comes to locations, you can do a background check on the location too. But I totally forgot my train of thought here. I totally had a brain fart again. Damn it.
I'd say I asked Dave or Kenny. That's where I go. I'm like, hey, does this shit look legit? And they go, yeah. I'm like, cool. Looks good to me.
I think a lot of it just comes from experience, like you said, Kenny. It's just after you've done it for so long, and I'm not going to put a year thing on there because you'll make fun of me because we covered that in our last show when somebody says how many years of experience they have in the field. So I'll just say I've been looking into it and involved with it for a while. We'll just leave it at that. And I think you just kind of by trial and error and critical thinking, you figure out what's good information and what's not. There's a couple keys. I mean, are there references? Is it built upon past work? Do they make a case for this is what's been done before? Here's some new information, and here's how it fits in or into the old information, or here's how it changes it. And it builds upon prior work. It isn't just, I think there's a ghost here, and I think it makes stick figures on the Connect. And that's my report, and that's what it is. Why? I mean, who has done work that had led up to anything that would make that reasonable?
I guess something that I have here that might kind of coincide with what Dave's saying is I often look up for information to discredit an idea that you have. So it's easy to look up information to see if you're right, but work really hard to see if you're wrong.
Well, that's no fun, Tim. That's no fun.
No, I know. Well, that shit's no fun. The whole thing's no fun. That's why people don't do it. That shit's hard. It's like playing.
You expect me to tell you that I'm wrong? What the hell's wrong with you?
Have you ever tried to play a game of chess with yourself?
No.
Try it. You cheat. It's hard. It's like you have to train your mind not to cheat. It's kind of the same thing. You have to train your mind to
double dose
to prove yourself wrong.
Yeah.
And that takes training. Nobody likes to do it.
I think that's a different problem because you're picking one side of yourself over the other. You're like, this side's gonna win.
You can't do it. Yeah, that's the whole point of like playing chess with yourself. You have to like train your brain to let go of the other side and play the best you can.
Yeah. All right, Bob. It actually sounds like you're describing an undergrad degree. Okay. Yeah, I probably am because I actually lean on my formal academic training when I'm doing a research project. And we all started out as ghost hunters, probably in paranormal investigators, but at the point I'm at now, it's anything I really do is it's a research project. It's like, okay, we have an idea, we have a hypothesis, let's go do something, let's test it, let's analyze the data, and let's see where it takes us. But I'm probably describing that because I lean on my actual academic training from undergrad and grad school to kind of guide the scientific method and the process, and everything I do with data analysis and some of the papers we've put together in the research project. So yeah, it probably does sound like I'm describing that, but I think was it Kenny? I think Kenny maybe said you don't necessarily have to get a academic degree, but you can take classes at your community college. You can take classes at a normal 4-year undergrad institution. They have them. I mean, if you're willing to fork out the money and do it, you don't necessarily have to go and get an undergraduate degree. But I mean, my personal bias is probably that if you really want to do it and get into the research aspect and write papers and make some headway in the field, you got to have some level of understanding of how to do that. And people can teach themselves that all the time. You don't have to get an academic degree.
So absolutely true story. When a long time ago, when I was graduating high school, and that was a long time ago,
in a galaxy far away.
I was looking at a school in North Carolina, and I cannot remember the one, but they offered a paranormal degree. My cousin, who lives there. I have a lot of kin that live in North Carolina. Went to that school, and when I talked to her about it, she told me, she was like, don't. She goes, do you know what people that finish? This is terrible. She goes, do you know what people are doing that finish with that degree are doing right now? And I'm like, what? And she said, waiting tables. So she said, if you're going to do it,
it's a lot of
then
degrees.
I know. So, well, she said, if you're going to do it, then which is, I guess, maybe the basis on why I come at it when I think about when people ask what to do if they want to go to school. I ended up just going and doing a BS in psychology. BS bullshit. Which is why I had to take statistics. I went on anyway. So yeah, the other side of it is like when I got out and started working, and then I got past my phase of the ultimate belief that everything is true. I just have to find the answer where it is. There's a lot of things out there that are just not, like, you don't have to have a degree. Like, you don't have to have a degree to like solve these things. You really don't. And there's things, everybody brings so many different things to the table that can absolutely lay down the truth or blow up a lie, which is great. Anything. And you don't have to have a degree. You can get certifications and a lot of things. But yeah, I don't see. I just ended up getting a degree, so I really, probably looking back, I was really bored, didn't know what to do. So I was like, psychology doesn't have a lot of math, so I'll do that.
I like how you the way you were putting that. That there were so many people that bring so much to the table, and
it really is.
To expand on that, I mean, you don't. This is a good lesson. You don't need to know everything, and that's what, at least I see, and I think we all see it, especially when we interact with other groups, and paranormal groups and ghost hunters and stuff, where there's this unwritten rule that they're supposed to have an answer for everything,
right?
And you ask them questions that they don't know, and sometimes you absolutely know that they do not know the answer to it, but they try to bullshit their way through it. And to come to grips with that, and I get that, because I remember having that feeling when I was a ghost hunter, like I'm supposed to be an expert, but not knowing is okay. And we've said this hundreds of times. Not knowing is okay. That's why it actually came up last night. Somebody asked them like what my dream team was, and like I talked about everybody that I work with, because like you guys and like Ben, if he's still in the chat room, he's probably not, because he's a dick. But everybody else,
for his comment to pop up
that I work with, I don't have to know everything.
Right.
I can go to people, I can go to different people and say, hey, I can bounce this idea off you and say, what do you think? You have an expertise in this, you have a background in this, whatever. Tell me what you think. And then I go with that. Or
I think you do that. People do that in their real jobs too, especially if you're a good manager. Let's say you run a department or a group. You always look to hire people that have strength. You obviously don't,
right?
Because they're supposed to be hired for a specific job, and you're not going to know everything. Like, this person's been trained in a technical background versus somebody who's trained in a marketing background.
Yeah. So I mean, it's okay not to know the answer to something, and I mean, I think that's a good lesson, even though we're talking more or less, about things you can, like classes you can take to expand your knowledge. It's okay not to know something. So there you go.
It's actually normal not to know. It's abnormal to present yourself that you know everything.
Right.
So Kathy says, so basically what's being said is there are no actual classes in how to ghost hunt. So that's actually a nice transition into the next topic. There are classes. There's a hell of a lot of classes. However, how do you know if they're a good class? How do you know if it's credible? A lot of times now you're seeing groups and people that are having classes connected to community colleges. And it gives the air of that's an academic setting. This ghost hunting class, paranormal investigation class is being taught with the support of this community college or a 2-year college. The thing is, if you look at those, none of the colleges are granting, that I know of, I could be wrong, but none of those colleges are granting credit hours for those classes. They're usually a part of their adult continuing education curriculum, where you can go and, figure out how to set up your Facebook page. I mean, it's a lot, or you have a gardening class. Nobody's getting any credit hours for that, but they're allowing them to teach those classes. But then you see standalone classes as well. People will hold a class at a haunted location or during a conference. So I don't think we're saying there aren't any classes, because I've seen plenty of them. I'm sure Tim and Kenny have too. The thing to do is, one, for you and Kenny and Tim, what do you think of those classes? And then we can talk about what should you be looking for before you decide to sign up for one of those and determine that's where you want to go and get some information and training to be a ghost hunter or a paranormal investigator. So I'll start with Tim first before he falls asleep staring at the ceiling.
No, that was so painful. It was like, oh my
He's
God.
dying.
Oh,
all right, Tim. So what do you think?
If I was looking at a class, if I saw a class at my local community college and they were offering a ghost hunting class, I guess the first thing I would do is I understand what I'm looking for. So I would research the person presenting the class to see what credentials they have. Typically, it would be at least in the description of the class itself. If they have any training or degrees or any certifications in the subject that they're doing, it looks like it would be presented in their not syllabus, but in their bio.
You look for comments like world renowned, 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah, you're going exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I would look for. I would look up their work. I would look up if they have a website. I would look up to see if it matches anything that would suit what I'm shooting for. So if I'm thinking I would like to learn something with a scientific flavor to it, or a scientific method with it, and I see that they're teaching classes on the healing powers of the crystals, I probably would skip it because that would not match with me.
Okay. Kenny?
I mean, you really got most of the stuff that I was going to say, Tim. So thanks, Dick.
Thanks for letting me go first, Dave.
Anytime.
That's why I was like, when I was looking at the ceiling, I was like, oh my God, this is so painful.
Yeah, so I would do the same thing. Good classes for me, I would look into the instructor. I'll make sure they have some kind of credentials that would qualify them to actually teach what they're teaching. Because I don't want to take, if I go to like I don't know, for instance, I went to a lecture at a paranormal conference that was about ghost photography. And the guy teaching it was not a photographer. No experience in a photographer. All the experience that he had was point and shoot cameras. That's it. When I asked about using an SLR with a slave flash, he looked at me like, SL what? And I was like, you got to be kidding me. You don't know SLR. Any photographer would know exactly what I'm talking about. And he total blank. So right there, I knew this was a bad class. It was not worth it. But look into their experience. Make sure that they have the experience to back it up. Look at do they have training? And then look at the curriculum. Yeah, what are they going to teach? What am I going to learn here? Okay, is this something that I can find anywhere on the internet? Can I take a YouTube video channel? I can watch a video and learn the same thing in 5 minutes. And also previous work. Like, look into what they've done beforehand. And like, if I had the chance to take a class on photography from like a paraceleb, from a ghost hunting show, or a gentleman named Paul Michael Kane, and I looked both of them up, I realized that Paul Michael Caine is a professional photographer with years of experience and a backlog of work that I can check and say, damn, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. I'm going to this class. For a bad class, well, the first sign of a bad class is when a class gets canceled because the only 3 people that signed up are smarter than the instructor.
Oh.
I'm familiar with that class, I think.
I had to throw that in there.
I believe, yeah, I've heard of that.
I've heard that happening before.
Popped up in my head. It's looking at bad classes. Yeah, if it's a ghost hunter that has a reputation for, just not doing anything, not doing good work. And I'm thinking of someone in particular, but this applies to a lot of people. Whenever I go to conferences, I see lectures given by people that are not qualified. They don't have the experience. They don't have the academic background. They don't have any training in the background, let alone any academic stuff. But the experience is basically they read books, they watch TV shows, and don't be afraid to ask. If you find the person that's going to give that host the lecture, go up and talk to them and say, you're talking about EVPs. Have you had any audio training? Like, do you know anything about like audio recorders and speakers and mixers and sound whatever? And then they look at you like, oh, well, no, I don't do that. I just, I know from my experience going to haunted places. Then that's not a class that you should go to. It really isn't. Save your time. Go somewhere else. Get a book on audio, like an actual book about, like, go to the Guitar Center and learn how to work like audio equipment. That would be a good class for me.
Don't ever take me there. I usually walk out with a new keyboard. My wife loves that.
Yeah, we can see in the background.
It's a bad place to go if you want to hold on to your money.
I think that Kenny makes a really good point. If you have a choice between spending your money on a ghost hunting class or at the same time or the same period of time, the university or the community college is offering a class on something that can be used and you find interesting in investigating ghosts or solving mysteries, I really like that. Like, I would rather somebody spend their money on a photography class and understanding that, and then apply that information that they have into solving strange pictures or solving, mysteries of pictures, sightings. I don't know, but it just seems like at the end your money will be better spent. For a hobby or something that you actually find interesting as well that you could use elsewhere.
Just piggybacking off that, just something I can throw out there is that if you look at a lot of places that are like old mansions or stuff like that, if you look, sometimes they have photography workshops where you pay a certain amount of money and there's a professional photographer that guides you through like the area. Sometimes it's like an abandoned mansion or asylum or something. Other times, like there's a toy museum kind of thing up by my way where they have them, where you go along and you can take pictures and get instruction. And even though that's not specifically like, this is how you ghost hunt with cameras, it's a photography class and you can get tips and tricks to understand what you're doing better. And you can apply all that learning to your paranormal investigating kind of stuff. So it's interesting and it's fun.
Okay. What do you think of, and this is a loaded question, I know what you're going to say, but we're going to bring it up and talk about it. What do you think of the classes, either online or in-person ones that offer a certificate or a diploma?
Oh, I should have brought my red card.
Tim, you go first. I'm going to get my diploma.
No. I'd
agree with you.
I would. Again, it goes back to, I can't. It would be rude. It would be arrogant, I guess, to say no to all of them. Where something might actually be useful. So generally speaking, if there's some place that's offering a certification or some type of award for finishing their program in a paranormal class, I would hope that they wouldn't charge money.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. They're going to charge money like the classes, even if it's a legit one, and you don't get a certificate or a diploma. But if it's taught through a community college, they're going to charge because the college has to get paid for the classroom and the time and the power bill. And I mean, there's things they have to get paid for. So they're going to charge, and the people teaching the class probably aren't making a whole lot. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I have no problem if somebody gives you a certificate of completion that says you took the class and that's it. But if they say you obtained a certificate or a diploma of paranormal investigating or ghost hunting, so what? What's the backing authority that they're stamping that with that shows that it's an accredited program, it has anything that meets any academic standard at all? So I totally not a big fan of those. I mean, even when I took my class at the University of Edinburgh online, all they did is sent me a certificate that said, hey, this guy took this class and he passed.
Right.
And you still didn't get college credit for it. So anyway, Kenny, you're up.
I'm right there with you guys. I mean, it's a toss up. Like, yeah, if we're going to talk about like ghost hunting certification, if we're specifically looking at that, then I usually will call bullshit. And I'll probably do it without hesitation. To be honest, it's like, oh yeah, that's bullshit. You know, who's certifying you in ghost hunting? Because I didn't realize that there was an actual method, a standardized method of doing this. Like, who's doing it? Because I've seen so many, and I did write an article about it and got into it a little bit. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's dozens and dozens, hundreds of groups out there that offer some kind of certification, and don't be fooled. It's not worth it. Ghost hunting or paranormal investigator certification, it's not worth it. Spend your money on other courses from real places, real teachers. But I mean, there's like, this is the famous diploma. Okay, this is what I got. It says my name, parapsychology diploma with a distinction. Even got a little fake freaking seal of approval right there. But I got that from the Center of Excellence. This is my like 200-hour course that took me 5 hours while I was drunk, and I passed with a distinction. So I kicked his ass.
Well, let's be honest. A lot of kids that go through college are drunk most of the time too.
Well, yeah. All right, you got me on that one. But this is a demonstration of how useless something like this is, because when you look at these classes, this is not. When it told me how long it took, and it only cost me, I think it cost, I forget the exact amount, like $45, something like that, dollars. So it was a ridiculous amount. That already told me this was not legit. But there are if it's a free class, then take it, see what happens. Because we've done that, even if it's cheap. We've done that. We've signed up for classes like that, not really expecting to learn much. But to see what's going on, you know, what's being put out there, so that we're better prepared to deal with it when it comes up with us. But if we're talking about certifications and other things, like, again, like I can't think of anything off the top of my head, because like if you take a photography course or a video editing course, yes, you're probably going to get a certificate of completion. That's not a certification. It's a certificate of completion. However, if you go to specific companies, like if you go to Adobe and they are offering a certification in Photoshop, then I'm pretty confident that's going to be a certification, because that's the company that puts it out. It's their product. They're certifying you in their product, and that's how it works. So I would definitely sign up for one of those courses. It's damn right. Yeah, that'd be great. Same with video editing. You know, if Sony put out something like that, yeah, absolutely. But I do courses. I do like little online courses for video editing with like Filmora, the software that I use. I do video classes on that. I don't get certified and I don't get credit, but it's just taking the class, learning what they're doing. Okay, great. I learned something. I could print out a certificate if I wanted to.
Right.
And that's the point with this thing. Like, I can print this certificate out. I can change the name if I wanted to and give myself any kind of degree. But because I took the certified course from Adobe.
Professional rum drinker.
Oh, I like that. All right. So, yeah, that's what I
okay.
I guess when it comes to ghost hunting certification, no, there is none. No.
So one of the things I would look for is the person in the class credible? And what would I look for to determine if it's credible? For me, I would look and see, do they take a science and data-based approach? Do they have a skeptical view, not a cynical, but a skeptical view? They aren't just believers or cynics. Do they talk about and teach any investigation skills? Do they talk about critical thinking? This is obviously by hopefully looking at a syllabus, which they should have if you're interested in it. Do they talk about the equipment? And by equipment, I mean not saying we're going to cover ghost hunting equipment. We're gonna talk about what an electromagnetic field detector does. We're gonna talk about what a non-contact thermometer does and what the limitations are. Do they talk about equipment that is meant for certain things that you may apply to your investigations or your data collection, but they talk about it in realistic and meaningful ways? They talk about the limitations, what's the accuracy and precision of it. Are they well versed in the literature? You guys know, for me, that's a real stickler. I look at that and I go, and there's times where I think you guys have noticed we've taken some of these free classes, and I'll throw something out there that's obviously based on a paper or a study, which to me, if you're really serious and you're teaching a class, you should at least have knowledge of it. You might not know all the details, but I'll throw that out there as a bit of a test to kind of see if they know anything that they're talking about, especially the history of the field. You're going to talk about the paranormal and ghost hunting, but you don't know anything about the history. That can be a bit of a problem. I would also look and see if they talk to you at all about when you should know not to go into a home or business. Very strict criteria. Anybody who, if you look at a class and they say, when to do a exorcism or how to get rid of ghosts in a house, and they didn't even cover if the people or talk to you in the class about how to make sure people have been evaluated medically or they're willing to talk to you about that. To me, that's a red flag, and you'd have to be careful there. And then I always look to see, do they talk about any questions or questionnaires or things you should be asking people, and what's the overall general process? So I look for a bunch of different things to see if they're even credible. And as you guys said, you look into their background and what they know and what they've done before.
Yeah.
So I think we're coming up on an hour here. So I think we'll take our break. It's like 2 minutes and 20 seconds. And then I guess, let's see, who was it? John said something about the three of us should teach a class or a course, which that would be, we teach one every Saturday night at 7 Central. No. What I'd like to do after we come back from the break, and that'll be the last section I have, is talk about if we were to develop a course, what would we want included in it?
Okay.
What do we think would be important to train somebody up to actually be what we would consider a somewhat competent investigator, to at least investigate claims and collect data and present it in a reasonable way?
Sweet.
All right. Well, let me pull up our commercial, and we'll be back in about 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
Dun, dun.
All right, we're back.
Whoa.
Everybody has an empty bladder and a full glass. We're ready to
Refilled.
I'm a new person.
We got to make sure Tim gets a copy of that commercial for the next one he hosts.
Yeah.
You know, the only thing that's bad about this is that broadcasting down here in the basement means I got to run up 2 flights of stairs.
All right. So, yes, all the photos are free. I make sure you get them from a place where you don't have to pay for them. There's no copyright, nothing like that. So those are free. And the music is performed by me. And the themes, you'll recognize the themes, but they're changed a little bit. So they're not the exact same notes. That's how you can get around that part of it as well. But we also don't make any money on this, so it really doesn't matter if we use the exact same thing. So yes, that's a good question, though, because I do wonder that with a lot of podcasts. I do look at them and go, I know that song. It's not a mainstream artist, but I follow a lot of weird type of music, and I'm like, yeah. They took that and played more than you're supposed to for an intro or an outro. So it's interesting, but it's a good question. Maybe one of these days we'll talk about all the fun and all the crap we do behind the scenes to actually make one of these, to have one of these shows. We could make that part of our origin story. So we'll just get our phones and open Messenger and just share our screen.
No, we don't need some of the stuff that we say out in the public.
Well, we'll have to be very careful about what we send each other that week.
It will be a very heavily redacted document.
It's going to look like a government UFO report. You're going to see Dave, Tim, Kenny, and the rest is all blacked out.
Redacted.
And then it's see you at 7 tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's fine. We it's quite an exercise when we go through and chat back and forth during the week. The one couple come up with a topic, and then as we refine it and we bounce ideas off of each other, we do a lot of that as well. And if there's something that really pisses one of us off, that's a firestorm of messages back and forth on Messenger. Yeah. So anyway, a little behind the scenes stuff there. So if we were going to do a class, let's say, and try to get some people trained up to what we think would be a competent investigator or researcher, what would we include in our class? So I'll start off with my first one, and then we'll go around for suggestions, and then I got a couple more, and let's kind of see where that takes us. So I would, of course, say history of the field, psychology, parapsychology, and scientific method. That'd be the first one, couple things I'd start off with, and that, of course, would include different types of ghost and haunting hypotheses, both natural, misinterpretation, things that can be interpreted as paranormal, then of course any parapsychological hypotheses as well. So that's one area I would start off with. So Kenny, what else would you throw into a class?
Don't take mine, Kenny. Don't take mine.
I'll take whatever I want, bitch.
Don't take mine.
Man, Tim's getting unruly over there. Too much caffeine.
It is. This
is weird because I don't do classes. I do workshops. So I do host workshops from time to time, and it's on photography or solving mysteries. So there's a lot that I deal with. But if we're doing like a whole class or a course, if we're talking a course where it's like multiple classes, there's so much. I mean, I probably would go and expand upon like what you said with the scientific method and get into controls, experimental controls, like what they are, what it means, and like how to design an experiment that incorporates this and gives you valid results. And I mean, that's just one part of it because I think it's really important. I mean, when you do these EVP sessions, I freaking hate them because it's like, oh, let's turn a recorder on and let's either hold it and we're going to whisper, even though we said we're not, we're going to do it anyway, or we're going to leave it in the room. We're going to walk away for 300-400 hours and then come back and expect the only thing that'll be on here is like dead air or a ghost talking, because obviously nobody walked into that room, even though I wasn't there to say it. Big thing with me. So controls would be something I would focus on. Tim.
That's really good. Yeah, I remember I had this one as a backup for interviews, but you can't hold it, or it's, that's all you get. I kind of, this is a big topic, so I just kind of put it all together. So it's kind of, I would go with some type of family dynamics and care. I would not want a class that didn't take into consideration that you need to understand if someone looks like it's a mental health problem, or if it looks like a abusive problem in the house, or a substance abuse problem, that you have an obligation, or that you should have an obligation to at least report that, or try to pass that off to another organization or entity that could come in and help that. And I think lately we kind of joke about it, but it's been a pet peeve of mine to absolutely see people say, and I haven't slept for days, I haven't eaten for 2 days, and I'm hearing voices, and I'm like, go see a doctor. And people are like, ignore him. He's a skeptic. You have a demon. I'm like, you know what? You don't tell that person that, you don't understand. Like, they're reaching out for help. They're trying to say things, and don't seek professional help. That's not good. So that's probably, that much would probably be a lot to handle. So I'll just keep it in family care and family understanding. You can't walk away with a medical degree or a social work degree or a psychology degree, but at least you could come away looking at an understanding of some type of basis of what to identify and who to call.
Okay. Those are good start. I would also look at them talking about the technology and the equipment, how to use it, limitations, how to interpret it, where to place it, what to do with it, and then the methodology. How would you actually go about, and obviously mine's going to be bent more towards collecting data and doing a research project, but how would you collect data, even on an investigation? If you're investigating a place and somebody claims that something happened, how would you do it? What would you do? Where would you put the equipment? How long would you do it? Why would you put it there? How would you interpret the data for that? So I would spend a lot of time on that. And we have Tim, sit in on the statistics section of that class a couple times. So those would be a couple other things. So protocol, procedure, tech equipment, methodology, and how to analyze the data.
That is absolutely a class I would sit in on. I mean, joking aside, like, honestly, I would ask you to help. Like, Dave, what the hell do these things mean in statistics? But otherwise, that
I would sit next to you, and you would be on this side of me, because that's my best angle to cheat.
Everything else you said in there is so spot on. I would love that class. Like, why do you put it there? What do you put there? What are you actually measuring? Like, how long should you put it there? I think that is a wonderful. I think I would love that.
All right. So we'll go around again. We'll bounce back to Tim, and then we'll go to Kenny this time around.
I go back to structures. I would like to see at least some type of understanding of building materials, environmental effects on structures, and not just that, but look for any type of safety, carbon monoxide leaks, flammable gas leaks, non-ventilation in systems, HVAC systems that aren't working properly. Again, I maybe not want to go, maybe not what a ghost hunter would want or someone would probably want, but I think having, again, an understanding of the environment that you're going to be in on another level would be very beneficial. We wake up in the morning and all the kitchen cabinet doors are open. Well, have you had a craftsperson look at it? No, because obviously it's the deceased person of the person that, that lived here before us. Well, have you leveled the floors? No, that'd be a waste of time. have an understanding of what could possibly be there before you make huge decisions.
Cool.
Okay, Kenny.
Documentation, detail,
Definitely.
especially details. How to document what you're doing and what to document. It's very important, especially from my perspective, is when I'm digging through records, especially when it's case files of something that somebody investigated prior to me. You need details. So if someone's using a piece of equipment, list the equipment, like make and model, year, any problems with it. You need to know this stuff. You need to know where it was put, and it goes along with what you guys were saying already, like or what Dave, what you mentioned. Why are you putting it there? Put it in the notes. How long was it there? Where exactly was it? How was it positioned? Was it sitting on a table? Was it on a mount or something like that? All these details are really, really important, because when you go back and look at the case, there's going to be questions, especially if you have some jackass like me coming at you saying, hey, what piece of equipment did you use? And you're like, oh, a recorder. What kind of recorder? And you're like, oh, I don't know. That's not good documentation.
Right.
And it also goes into other historical accounts, or this actually bleeds over to primary sources, which is another topic, but I'm going to cheat here and actually do a twofer. But documentation as in like original newspaper articles, original books, like I mentioned in the beginning, having books for references, getting the original first print book if you can, or a newspaper. Like I've purchased like Reader's Digest, what else? Large format magazines like Living or New York Life, stuff like that, because I needed the original article in there.
Right.
Because the documentation is different. You can't rely on somebody that hand or typed it themselves or hand wrote a note saying, oh, this is what that article said. No. You need that documentation. So yeah, if you're taking notes, if you're investigating a place, don't rely on, hey, I'm gonna write this down when I get home or tomorrow when I wake up. I'll just write down a report of what I did, because I guarantee you're going to get it wrong. That's a given. You're going to get it wrong. Write it down as you do it. I have notebooks, like my awesome 3TS notebook that I carry with me all the time. I even have the little journalist kind of notebooks that are always in my pocket, and I'm writing notes down. And when I do that, one of the things that I do is that I initial the bottom of every page. As soon as I get to the bottom of the page, I initial it and date it. And that tells me that, yes, I did this page. I wrote the notes here. So if you're doing this in like a community book or something like that, or if someone's going to look at your notes, they can look and say, oh, this was Kenny Biddle. He did this on, March 1st, 2020. This is when now we know who to go to ask questions about these notes. That's something I learned from Mitch Silverstein. But yeah,
that's definitely a good point. And that's actually something that I learned to do through grad school, because you always had your lab notebook. And you always very detailed description of what you did, when you did it, and then you would date and sign the bottom of the page. So it's interesting that you kind of learned that from Mitch, or picked that up from Mitch, and I kind of got it through going through school. So I guess that some of that schooling was useful.
There you go.
Okay, so moving on, we've had a lot of good suggestions from the group. I've been posting those comments as they come up. I would also talk about how to map a location, because sometimes you don't always have a blueprint, or you don't have access to anything that would describe the location. So how to map it, where to put, potential, do you put power sources in? Do you show where you had different readings? That's something that's going to be important. And one of the things that is always interesting to do, and I think people need to do more of this, is if you map the location, you give a copy of that to the homeowner, have them write down where they had experiences, and then kind of put that aside, and then have your group go in and do their data collection, and then see if any of that correlates with the locations that the homeowner said. So you'd almost go in blinded, but then match them up afterwards. And there's actually people that have done that, and they've done it with having sensitives and psychics go through the areas as well. And it can be a fun exercise. So mapping the location, I think we already talked about this, controls and how to control your conditions. Part of the analysis would be, data correlation, and then forms. Forms, I would give examples and actual forms people can use for data, how to collect it, how to write it down, how to analyze it, and then permissions. Are you going into a location that you need a permission, release forms? And then the last two things I'll mention on my list is how to do literature searches, and then how to write a report, both just a general investigation report, a summary of your notes, or actually a scientific report if that's what you're wanting to do. So I would go through all that as well in a class.
Cool.
So let's.
I had one. Yeah. I don't know exactly how to spin it, but it was something that came up in my mind while you were talking, was a legal section. I guess when forms were in my mind as well, but I don't know if there would be any benefit if anybody could listen to the legalities or the potential investment or obligations that they're taking on when they work with a family. But maybe if they heard, if you offer a service and that's what you're telling them that you're going to do, are you obligated to? Are there any ramifications if you cause harm or cause loss of money or loss of life, or not life, but there's another word I can't remember, but if you cause emotional harm and they suffer, are you liable for that? But when you said forms, it also kind of made me think it's probably pretty good to know what to put in forms when if you're going to work with a family, to make sure that they're safe from you, and to make sure that you are not going outside of your lane, as Kenny says.
Yep.
So, I mean, are we going to jump, put a whole bunch together? Because I have a few. I have
go ahead.
Okay, so I would do something with logical fallacies, because we've talked about that a lot, and we all do that. We all boom, bitch.
It's on there. I just want to say.
Okay, I took it and made it my own.
That's okay.
But yeah, we talk about them, and we understand, like, we make them. We commit logical fallacies, and we see it in other people. So understanding them, because a lot of people do not. And I mean, I still struggle to understand a few of them. So it's helpful to take a class and understand them. So I would put that in there.
That's good.
I would also do, what's my next one? Oh, provenance. Learning the history of an object. Since we do deal with some, haunted objects or cursed items or something like that once in a while, knowing where they came from is important. Documentation, certification, who had it, who was the person that had it, is really important to know where it came from. Because sometimes you learn that, a mirror that allegedly belonged to an actor really didn't belong to the actor. And you're like, oh, wow, look at that.
Good point. That's a really good point.
So with that, and then I did mention primary sources, so that's one that I can kind of check off. And then I think Bob mentioned it about equipment, and it kind of piggybacks off of, I think Dave, you mentioned it about where to put equipment and stuff like that, but also understanding what it does, and sometimes you might want to take it apart. And that's something I would probably put in a class if I did it, because I've taken apart a lot of this equipment. And I probably have like pieces of the stuff around here somewhere, but I've taken it apart to see what's inside. And I don't recommend that for everyone, because unless you have some kind of like mechanical skills, you're going to fuck it up. So most of the equipment that I've taken apart still works. Most, not all though. But then you can actually find out like the parts inside, and you find out that your like $300 item only cost $5. So you can get an understanding of that. And then of course, I would have recommended reading, and I do have a pile of books here, a small pile. But I mean, if you guys, I can go through them real quick. I'm not going to go into explanations. I'll just show them real quick. But two that I really love, Asking the Right Questions. Really good book. It's a critical thinking book. It's condensed, but really good. It really tells you how to evaluate your questions. I said I wasn't going to review them, but I just did. Anyway, Good About Questions. The Investigative Reporter's Handbook. I freaking love this book. I love it. If you want to learn how to investigate people, places, and things, yeah, this is it right here. Full Facts Book of Cold Reading. That's a recommended one. It's expensive, but it's worth it with that cold reading techniques. Flim Flam. And yes, Carl Sagan, Demon Hunter World. It's a little bit dated, but it still is relevant. A lot of the stuff in here is relevant, and it blows your mind.
I love that book.
3 more. I'm trying to get through it real quick, so I'm not taking up time. This is actually a little book. You can still get it on the Skeptical Inquirer website. It's Investigating Strange Mysteries by Joe Nickell. It's small, but it's to the point about investigating things. And it's pretty good. It goes through not only things that he did, but it gives you good steps to learn. And of course, can't forget my buddy Ben, Investigating Ghosts.
Men who stare at goats.
That was a good film.
That was funny.
Definitely for the insight on how to investigate a few things and bad techniques. It's really good. And then lastly, turning the camera or the mirror back onto yourself as a ghost hunter. This is a good book. It really takes a look at amateur ghost hunters. So
I like that book too.
Of recommended reading. Plus, there's a ton more that I left upstairs because I was like, I'm already well over. There's too many.
Anytime you are chatting with us and you think of a few books, send them to me and I'll put them on the reading list on our website.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
For mine, I'm just going to post a link from the website Jen and I have, espsi.center, the Sci Center, and it has a whole list of journals, societies, books, universities. We have a whole list of resources there that I would obviously recommend as reading material.
And real quick, when I do workshops, because I've done workshops for like SciCon and different skeptical and humanist organizations, I usually go and I have a visual aid. This is my Solving Mysteries graph. And I need to update it, but it's got a whole bunch of steps.
Yep.
That you can go through. And the classes that I do teach, I call them workshops. I don't really call them classes. The workshops that I do, I usually take like 3 or 4 of those steps, and I go into more detail, and I give cases where I've used them and how they helped me solve the case. So that's usually what I do. Because I don't have I don't know if we could you imagine doing like a multi-day class? It would have to be like 2 weeks.
Yeah, it would be a long class.
It'd be a long time. And we'd have to bring in other people to teach very specific things. Yeah. We could do it, but I'm just saying.
So the last thing I would do with the class is actually have a lab section.
Oh, yeah.
Experience section. Just get out and do it as a group, and there you go. I stole Tim's last idea. So sorry, Tim.
Fuck myself.
But all right, good. Well, I think we covered a lot of stuff tonight. I think we can move into our closing statements. So who did I start? I think I started with Tim first last time. So let's start with Kenny and his closing statement.
So, I mean, the basic overall idea, I mean, it's not hard to figure out. It's don't waste your time on ghost hunting certifications, paranormal investigator certifications. If the instructor is a 20-year veteran paranormalist, don't get excited about it. All right, don't get high hopes. Just seek out people that have the background necessary. All right. Like if you want to take a course in photography, look to a photographer. If you want to take a course on psychology or, stuff like that, make sure the guy's a psychologist. They have the background. That's what you need to do. Don't be afraid to question. Don't be afraid to look into the instructor's background. Don't be afraid to ask for curriculum. These are questions. If you're paying for the class, you deserve to know, and you want to verify. So don't be afraid to ask questions, and avoid the paraceleb kind of things and just jumping into something without knowing what you're doing. And take your time. There's no like deadline on this. You don't have to know by tomorrow. Take your time, study it, make sure you understand it. And if you don't understand something, ask a question, please. That's the biggest fear I think I see. People afraid to ask a question, or they're afraid to speak up because it's like they look like they don't know what you're doing. Well, guess what? You don't fucking know what you're doing, so ask a question. Right? Just do it.
You'd be so great, teacher. That'd be awesome.
Ask the question. And then just finally understand you don't know everything. That's it. And if you don't know, say you don't know, and seek out a way to know. That's it. There you go. I'll pass it to Tim.
Damn it, Kenny. There's a whole what am I going to do? There's not a whole lot after that.
Hey, what can I say?
Yeah. Gosh. I'll add one more thing to my list that if you want references to go to learn something, and I tend to be an addict to online learning. Schools, Coursera is one, and they're actually online classes. You don't get college credit for it. You can, even if you pay for a more intensive class, you still don't get college credit for it, but they're free. They cover just about anything that you can think of. I think it's a really good idea from many universities, University of Michigan, MIT, University of Virginia. There are a lot. Purdue is one. There is a lot of universities that put together a training course, and they're free to do. Science, God knows I've done we just recently did one. I don't know what it was, but it was freaking hard. You can do them, and if you know what, you can do your best at it. And if you don't get it, then you can drop down to an easier class and work your way up to it. Now, as far as like taking online classes, there's not much more I can add to that. What Kenny said, I would recommend avoiding classes that promise you, how to investigate the paranormal. If you want to, if it's at least halfway decent class, they're going to have a syllabus or at least some type of what to expect if you take this class. I would look that over, and if there's not something there that is, that looks like it's going to challenge you or challenge your beliefs, I would stay away from it. Otherwise, you're just you're going into a rabbit hole of just reaffirming what you already think you know or what you believe you know. I would do that. I would rather spend my time learning something that I think that would cross connect with what I want to do. And there's something else. People that I would say, if there's no accreditation standard, if there's there's no standard of qualification for what they're teaching, you risk learning from somebody that says they have 20 years of experience, that has 20 years of doing the wrong thing for 20 years. And now they're going to teach you how to do the wrong thing for your start. At least when you go to accredited place that has some type of formal national agreement on what should be taught, how it should be taught. And at the end of the lesson or at the end of the time, you should at least know these basic things. When you finish, you can look back and see if it's a qualified place, and that's going to tell you, you're going to come out with at least some type of standardized information that when you meet somebody else, regardless of where they are in the country or the world, and you two have studied this together, you have an idea. Your information will be similar to their information. Whereas I think with paranormal classes and paranormal courses that don't have that, I mean, there's so many. They're so broad. It would worry me that I would not be getting the best that I could get.
Right.
Yeah. Well said. I don't have a whole lot more to add. You guys covered most of it.
Yeah. Now you're sweating.
Yeah. Geez, putting the heat on here.
You should have gone first.
Don't be afraid to learn. That's it. Don't watch the TV shows and think that's a guide on how to do things. Go out and seek out your own information, find credible information, and try to learn something about the field and all the different disciplines that go into it. Any type of training you have can be applied one way or another. Critical thinking, the ability to work through a process, an investigation, how to analyze your data, how to use your equipment. These are all things that you're going to need as a basis to be a good investigator. But the important thing is to just keep learning and be critical and logical and use your head. It's not all the fancy equipment. It's using your head and just following a process and knowing what you're doing and knowing a little something about the equipment you're using and what's been going on in the field. So I really don't have much more to add, and that's scraping the barrel there with those couple last comments. So with that, I think we'll just move right into if anybody has anything going on coming up in the near future. I don't right now. I don't think Tim does, so we'll just let Kenny tell us what he's doing.
I'm the only one that goes out to play.
We're coming where you're going.
Yeah, you guys should be, because that would be. I know we have some people that are excited at the prospect of us getting together. So if we can make that happen, that'll be great.
We will.
I'm gonna go. Let's see. I have. April 15th. I'll be on a radio show called Full Spectrum Radio, and I'll post a link in the on our page later when I get it, because it's still a couple weeks off. May 15th, I'm going to be doing a presentation for a Canadian skeptic camp. Skeptic camps are pretty much skeptical organizations that do like an online presentation, and it's a bunch of lectures by different people. It's a 20-minute lecture with a 10-minute Q&A afterwards. So I'll be doing a presentation on photography, and specifically like an old photograph, like 1900, like the year 1900, and then a modern photograph, and things I look for and how to figure out how they were faked or created. So it should be fun. June 3rd to 5th, I'll be in Gettysburg for phenomenology. And I think that's the one you guys are thinking about coming out to, which is still on. It should be a fun time. I just talked to the organizer 2 nights ago, and sounds like a lot of stuff is going on. There's going to be parties. I'm actually going to be speaking at the event now, which is going to be fun. I've never spoken at this event.
We got to come and heckle him.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Tim and I are going to be like those two old guys in the Muppets.
Yep.
So,
what kind of bullshit is this?
Yeah. I'll be like, yeah, this motherfucker.
He's just another paraceleb. Shut up.
Oh, I hate you.
Can I get my money back?
August 20th to 22nd, I'll be back in Gettysburg for the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash. It's another good event. Both of these conferences that I just mentioned, I'll have a booth set up at. I'll have my Skeptical Help booth up, and I'll also have a tin can out for donations. So if you want to sit down and ask a question or argue with me, I just ask that you make a donation, and it goes to the Cancer Research Institute. All the money goes to them. I don't get anything from this except the satisfaction of having a discussion with people, which I love to do. And then finally, September 25th, I'll be at the Para-Unity Conference in Woodbridge, New Jersey, and just be attending that. I'll be walking around, just talking to different people, collecting data on what people are doing and the latest trends and stuff like that. So that's my schedule so far.
There'll be a lot of hugging and kumbaya at Para-Unity.
There you go. Yeah.
There you go. All right.
Grabbing.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. We always appreciate the participation, the comments, the questions. Great to see you all again. And everybody have a great weekend and enjoy your week. And we will be back next week with another show. Until then, everybody have a good one. Take care.
Portraits.